But that's only 2 or 3% of the story, by the way. You'd also have to go to CC 86-81. Those are the court files in Coffee County, Alabama. But then, to get the compelling and absolute proof of my innocence, you'd have to go to where the repository of truth is in the matter of the state versus George White, and that's the law offices of Paul Young, my lawyer. You give him a call. Paul will make himself available to you. He'll lay it all out there for you. 90% of it ain't never seen the light of day in the public. That's just a little aside for you. Anyway, my conviction was overturned. I was released pending further proceedings. That's the last line in that appellate decision. Well, Paul and I thought, now we can get a fair trial. Once again, we were wrong. Over the next more than 3 years, there were 16 sessions of criminal court in Coffee County, Alabama, and at each one of those sessions we would appear. And when they would call out the state of Alabama versus George William White, and by the way, that's a whole lot of folks lined up against you, we would stand and announce present and ready to proceed. The state would say nothing, and the trial court would continue it beyond that term of court over our objections. That happened 16 consecutive times. Finally, more than 7 years from the night Char and I were shot. More than 7 years. We went all the way up, Paul and I, once again to the Alabama Supreme Court on a writ of mandamus, one of them 75-cent legal words. That's where you ask a higher court to order the lower court to do what they're supposed to do under the law. We went up on speedy trial. What the hell? Might as well try that one. March 31st, 1992, the Alabama Supreme Court said, "You denied this man a speedy trial. The remedy is take him to trial within the next 30 days. Well, that's what we were after, but it didn't happen. On April 9th, 1992, Paul and I and 4 men carrying boxes walked into the district attorney's office. We made a strategic decision. You see, in all those years, and especially in those last few months, and especially in those last few weeks, the house of cards had started to come tumbling down, and evidence that had been hidden from us in state files for more than 7 years started making its way into our hands. 102 separate items of evidence. Is there DNA? No, wasn't involved. So I can't attach a single page to a letter to prove my innocence. By God, you're going to have to look at all of it. And I invite anybody to do that if you got any doubt. We confronted the district attorney. And the next day there was a hastily called hearing. And the state of Alabama came forward with a motion to dismiss. And the trial court ordered the charge against me forevermore dismissed, with prejudice against the state of Alabama. And what that means, folks, is the state of Alabama could never again bring the charge against me. Perhaps based on what the judge saw in those 4 boxes. You think? As we exited the courthouse, we were met by the media, the TV cameras, the newspaper reporters. This wasn't big national news, but by God, it sure was big news in that part of the state of Alabama. And they stuck their microphones into the face of Joel Falmer, the district attorney, and they said, "Well, what does this mean? What happens now?" His response was, and I quote, "We're reopening the investigation. We're looking for the man who did it. I have no..." Was the last official statement by the state of Alabama in that matter. Such as it was, has been expunged. Legally, it's like it never happened. On an application or something, if I fill it out where it says, have you ever been arrested, convicted of a felony, legally, I can answer no. Now, usually what I do is put an asterisk and say attached because I got it happened. Now, where was George White bringing all of this in my head? Not every murder, but I did. I did. I not only times I was a victim man. I was a hurting man. I was an angry man. I was a bitter man. But it wasn't the hatred that sustained me. It was not the hatred that sustained me. Unwavering love that I had cursed. Talk about loving them, lovable. Woo! And Charlie, isn't that cursing your God up there near number 1 on that list of thou shalt nots? It was of friends. Far fewer than I once thought I had. It's amazing how quickly friends will bail on you when trouble comes. Especially when they hear rumors and innuendos and all that kind of stuff. Man, they'll go quick. And a country lawyer by the name of Paul Young that wouldn't quit, that wouldn't walk away, that is still my friend. And by the way, I always tell folks this, I paid Paul $1. And then legal fees in Alabama for capital is capped. The state of Alabama ultimately paid Paul $2,000 net for representing me for more than 7 years. And I still told Paul, man, you're in. I will not repeat what Paul says back to me.